All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. You know, some people might look at Kaifeng and just see a fading Tier 3 city, but actually, it's this dynamic, millennia-old time capsule. We are talking about a place where history isn't just trapped behind glass cases, it's something you can quite literally taste, smell, and walk on top of every single day.
So think about this for a second. What does our modern 24/7 food delivery obsession have in common with a buried ancient metropolis? It's a pretty wild question, right? Well, to figure it out, we've got to head to Kaifeng. Because the answer isn't sitting in some dusty textbook. It's actually alive and well beneath the bustling, aromatic streets of their massive morning markets. The everyday habits we consider perfectly modern today, they were actually perfected on these exact same geographic coordinates over 1,000 years ago. Think about the sheer, overwhelming variety of what is basically a daily carbohydrate carnival. I mean, locals wake up to this stuff. We're talking bubbling hula tong, which is this incredibly thick, spicy bone broth that's been boiling all night, packed with beef and chewy vermicelli. Or halal four-flavor soup, just brimming with crispy pork and daylily. It's this dense, flavor-packed explosion that serves as the hardcore breakfast foundation for the entire city. And there's this whole philosophy behind the food here. These folks are basically culinary engineers. Take their famous fried buns. They'll literally take a piping hot, greasy fried bun, one with 8 distinct folded layers of dough, and they stuff the whole thing directly inside a dry, oven-baked sesame cake. It's genius, because the wheat aroma of the cake perfectly neutralizes the oil of the bun. It gives you this complementary taste and a super satisfying crunch without feeling too heavy. Moving into Section 1, Digging Deep, the city-over-city phenomenon. Because to really grasp why this specific place is so incredibly obsessed with its culinary heritage, we actually have to look straight down, deep beneath their feet. Kaifeng sits dangerously close to the Yellow River, and over the course of about 2,700 years, the riverbed just kept rising from silt, basically turning into a suspended river right above the town. Because of that, it flooded and broke its banks over 300 times, burying the city in thick, heavy mud over and over again. But the crazy part? The people didn't leave. They just rebuilt right on top. And all that constant rebuilding created a literal layered history. Archaeologists have dug down and found something absolutely unbelievable. 6 ancient cities stacked directly on top of each other like a giant layer cake. Way down at 14 meters, you've got a Warring States-era city. Move up to 8 meters, you find the glorious Northern Song Dynasty. Keep moving up through the Ming and Qing dynasties, and you eventually reach the very ground the modern locals are walking on to buy their morning breakfast. But here is the truly miraculous part. Despite being repeatedly destroyed and buried vertically time and time again, the city's central layout never shifted horizontally, not an inch. The main commercial street, that central axis connecting the ancient palaces and the waterways, it has remained in the exact same geographic location for thousands of years. So that brings us to Section 2, the 8-meter mark and the urban revolution. If we dig down exactly 8 to 10 meters, we hit the Northern Song Dynasty. And this is the era that completely revolutionized how cities actually function. The difference between these two eras really shows how Kaifeng just completely broke the mold. Before this, like during the Tang Dynasty, cities were super rigid. You had strict grids of walled-off neighborhoods, severe curfews, and commercial markets were totally separated from residential homes. But Northern Song Kaifeng, it literally tore down those walls. It became the world's first open-street, sleepless commercial metropolis, packed with a population of over 1 million people. This massive explosion of commerce led to a practice called QJ. Basically, merchants just started setting up stalls directly out on the streets, building mixed-use storefronts right out of their homes. The government actually issued orders trying to stop it, but the commercial energy was so explosive that the authorities entirely failed. And honestly, thank goodness they did, because it forever changed the DNA of Chinese cities. All this explosive prosperity was captured beautifully in a famous 5-meter-long masterpiece called Along the River during the Qingming Festival. It's basically a high-definition photograph of a 12th century urban boom. Though, ironically, the most bustling, chaotic commercial scenes depicted aren't even inside the inner city. They're overflowing just outside the city walls, near the Hongqiao Bridge. If you actually zoom in on the details of this masterpiece, you'll spot a 12th century gig economy that's almost eerie in how much it mirrors our world today. I mean, you can literally see delivery workers carrying bowls of food to customers. You can even spot a ticketing system where laborers are handed bamboo tallies for every sack of grain they carry. It was a literal piece rate payment system from 1,000 years ago.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, but how do we know the artist wasn't just exaggerating? Well, we know this urban history is astonishingly accurate because of recent excavations at the buried Zhuqiao Bridge site. Archaeologists dug up these magnificent stone murals depicting seahorses and flying clouds, and they perfectly match the exact 1,000-year-old literary descriptions from ancient texts like the Eastern Capital, A Dream of Splendor. It's wild.
Moving on to Section 3, Relics of the Northern Song. So while most of the Song Dynasty is trapped 8 meters down in the mud, a handful of architectural marvels were built on slightly higher ground or were just tall enough to survive above ground. And they give us this amazing glimpse into their brilliant engineering. Just look at the 55-meter-tall iron pagoda, built way back in 1049. Fun fact, it isn't actually made of iron. It's built with these custom glazed bricks that just look like rusty metal. And it survived 43 earthquakes and 6 massive floods. How? Through this ingenious tube-in-tube construction. By connecting an inner and outer core with a spiral staircase, they created a shock-absorbing structure. We literally still use that exact method in modern skyscrapers today. Then there's the reconstructed Kaifeng Fu, the ancient government office of the famously impartial magistrate Bao Zhang. It is full of wild surprises. Like, you know that giant drum out front? Everyone thought it was for civilians to bang on to report crimes. Nope. It was literally just the magistrate's clock in and clock out bell. And even more fascinating, their ancient squatting jails used hollow walls filled with loose sand. So if a prisoner tried to dig out, the sand would pour down and immediately reveal the escape attempt. Pretty smart, right? And the sheer dedication to craftsmanship back then was just staggering. Get this. It took an unnamed artist 58 entire years to carve the magnificent 1,000-hand Guanyin statue out of one single massive ginkgo tree. That stunning piece of dedication still stands today at the historic Xiangguo Temple, acting as a quiet survivor of the city's really turbulent past. All right, Section 4, Tasting a 1,000-Year Legacy. Let's travel back up to the modern service. Because here, history isn't just trapped behind museum glass. It's actively cooked, sold, and eaten every single day. These dishes are literally living artifacts. They aren't just snacks. They've been perfected by generations of merchants operating in the exact same open street format established a millennia ago. You've got guacui, this hard-shell pancake that started as military rations way back in the Tang Dynasty. And guantang bao, these amazing soup dumplings bursting with savory juice that were famous all the way back in the Northern Song era. And this history even bleeds into the customer service itself. In local restaurants today, waiters, known as tongguan, still use these highly stylized rhyming chants to call out orders. It's a super theatrical, loud, and engaging tradition born directly from the ancient Wasi entertainment centers and open-air theaters of the Song Dynasty. And that crazy commercial energy, it definitely doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Every single night at the Golu Night Market, over 200 stalls fire up their woks and grills across a massive 7,000-square-meter plaza. The air just fills with the smell of sizzling lamb, 5-spice ramen, and roasted sesame. So while you can absolutely go to the massive Kaifeng Museum to quietly observe static artifacts of the past, the truest museum in this city is out on its streets. The world's first open 24/7 city never really went to sleep, you know? It just moved 8 meters higher up the mudline. History in Kaifeng is a living, breathing, and delicious daily practice. And the resilience of the city proves something really profound. It shows us that while raging rivers can bury bricks, mortar, and even entire palaces under 10 meters of mud, they absolutely cannot wash away the culinary soul and the entrepreneurial spirit of a people. So the next time you order late-night delivery, will you think about the buried ancient city that invented the very concept of a sleepless, snacking metropolis? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other everyday habits that we take totally for granted in our modern lives were actually born from a massive urban revolution thousands of years ago? Keep that in mind the next time you're scrolling for a midnight snack.